welcome here to Superpowered Pop. Dan Tortora hanging out with you inside of the web. And today's topic is the Sony Spider-Verse. Because I've had a lot of thoughts. Obviously, I'm a big Venom fan. I'm a big Spider-Man fan. And after watching Kraven the Hunter and watching Venom 3, I just kind of wanted to pull it all together and have a conversation about where we're at in this Sony Spider-Verse. Because there's a lot of things here that look to be happening, right? But there's a lot of confusion. We've seen Morbius. We've seen Morbius talking with Vulture. We know that Vulture has spoken with Scorpion in jail, but we haven't seen Scorpion in his costume or with any skill set. We've just kind of seen him in jail with the Scorpion tattoo. So, jumping right into the Sony Spider-Verse, back with the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, and I was an extra in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, the movies that featured Andrew Garfield. So I was in the second one. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, they were trying to put together the Sinister Six. And at the end of the movie, we saw the legs of that, right? We saw the man walking through Oscorp, and we saw different things that were there. The whole end credits, it had Mysterio, it had Vulture, it had Dr. Octopus. So we saw this coming together, right? And then in Spider-Man No Way Home, which is a Marvel Studios product that works in conjunction with Sony, that movie, when we saw the rift in the multiverse, we saw a bunch of the characters' silhouettes, like Kraven the Hunter, like Scorpion, and Doc Ock, and so on and so forth. So there has been this Sony Pictures push since Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 toward the Sinister Six. And then after that, we saw an ode to it in Spider-Man No Way Home. And since then, in these other Sony Spider-Verse movies, we have a movie now of Kraven the Hunter, who's a member of the Sinister Six. We have Morbius, who could find his way into the Sinister Six. We have, obviously, like I said, Morbius talking to Vulture, who is a member of the Sinister Six, and Vulture talking to Scorpion, who's a member of the Sinister Six. But when Vulture talked to Scorpion, he would not give up the identity of Spider-Man, because when he left Spider-Man in Spider-Man Homecoming, in this Marvel Studios Sony Pictures crossover, Vulture was on good terms with Spider-Man / Peter Parker, and so he didn't let out any information. The thing that doesn't make sense with Sony is the Morbius post-credit scene shows Vulture in this universe, right? But Vulture in Spider-Man No Way Home, all of these characters that know the true identity of Peter Parker as Spider-Man, they were trying to come into Earth 616, into what we know as the Marvel Studios universe that we've seen on the big screen and the small screen for over a decade. And then in the Morbius movie, they made Vulture go back to his universe and leave Earth 616, which doesn't make any logical sense because he wasn't in Earth 616 and he went to Earth 616. So it just kind of throws everything off as to what is Sony doing? And I think that that's a question that comes up a lot, right? What's Sony Pictures doing with this Spider-Verse? Because the Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse movies, they're good, right? It's the first time we saw Miles Morales. He hasn't been in live action yet. We've seen the Prowler, live action looking Prowler. And we've also seen the cartoon version of Prowler. We've seen Spider-Gwen as a cartoon version. We've seen Spider-Man 2099 as a cartoon version. And a bunch of other Spider-like characters like Spider-Man Noir and so on and so forth. So, and we saw Kingpin in the cartoon that's in Sony. So we have Kingpin in the Hawkeye TV show on Disney Plus with Marvel Studios and Marvel Television. We have Kingpin in the Daredevil universe. And then we have Kingpin in the multiverse of Sony in the Into the Spider-Verse movie. So we know that Kingpin exists in the Spider-Man world, but how they're going to bring it all together. And that's where the confusion comes in, because these Venom movies come in too, and Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man and to all of the Spider characters. So the question is, why has Sony been acting like they don't? Why has Sony been living like they don't? So that's what I don't understand. I don't understand that at all. Why Sony didn't put the spider on Venom's chest, the white spider, because Sony owns the rights, as far as I know and as far as I've understood, because Spider-Man and all these characters can't just be used willy-nilly by Marvel Studios, is because they sold the rights to Sony years ago when Marvel was going bankrupt and before the studio started and all that stuff. So they sold it to Sony, so Sony has the rights to use Spider-Man and all of these spider-connected characters. There's over 900 characters, including Venom, including the Sinister Six, that they have the right to use. Black Cat, so on and so forth. So if they have the rights to use it, then why did they act like they didn't? Why would you do a Venom story? And I've already done another video about this, so you could check it out here on our YouTube channel at Superpowered Pop. But I spoke about the fact that there's no spider on Venom. I mean, like, you look at Venom right here. Here's the spider on his chest, right? That comes from bonding, the symbiote bonding with Spider-Man first. Bonds with Peter Parker, finds out he's Spider-Man, gains his powers, gains his memories, goes on to Eddie Brock. Then Eddie Brock knows that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and he also has these powers, could shoot the webs out and all that good stuff. In the Venom movies with Tom Hardy, they took Spider-Man out. There's no Spider-Man. So we see white veins going throughout his body, but we don't see a white spider on his chest or on his back. And that doesn't make sense because Sony owns the rights to it. So why Sony would act like they were the knockoff brand when they were the brand doesn't make sense to me. And the Tom Hardy movies I like. I mean, there was a time where I thought Venom was never going to be on the screen. I was never going to see Venom. I was never going to enjoy one of my favorite characters of all time. Spider-Man and Venom are kind of a tie for my two favorite characters of all time. And not seeing Venom, I thought it was never going to happen. And then it happens, but it doesn't like truly happen. It doesn't have like, yes, there's a rock that falls from space and it crashes. In the comic books, John Jameson, the son of J. Jonah Jameson, goes to the moon, comes back with this gem, which turns him into a wolf, man-wolf, and at the same time doesn't know that the symbiote has found its way onto the aircraft, and it comes back to Earth with them. So they obviously changed that story. It just crash lands, and there's a bunch of different symbiotes. And I understand that these Venom movies wanted to use multiple symbiotes. They put so many different... They put Riot in there. They put Shriek in there. They put, obviously, Venom. They put Carnage in there. They put Toxin in there. And then they had other characters that showed up in the third one. I love that they did it, but the story doesn't link back to the original story. And I can't stand when people say, well, the 99.9% of the people that go to watch a comic book movie know nothing about the comic books. They just want to have a good time. And 0.1% know about it. If that was true, then these movies would do better when they break away from the source material. But typically when a movie breaks away from the source material of the comics, it doesn't do as good. So it's got to be more than 0.1% of the moviegoers that are the comic book readers. Because if it's just 0.1%, then why are the movies that stay true to the characters from the comics doing better than the ones that don't? I mean, Fantastic Four, people had so many problems with that, right? But the first iteration of the Fantastic Four that 20th Century Fox did, I didn't have a problem with that. Because Johnny was Johnny and the Thing was the Thing, and Sue and Reed and Victor Von Doom, Dr. Doom, like those characters made sense to me. Silver Surfer made sense to me. But people didn't like the movies. Then they did a more serious version of the Fantastic Four in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, and the Fantastic Four, they did a new iteration with 20th Century Fox with Michael B. Jordan and Miles Teller and so on and so forth, and Kate Mara and whatnot, and that didn't work out. It was too serious. The tone was too sad. It was too ominous. It was too kind of DC, right? What DC used to be. I think DC is going to be better with James Gunn, but I sit here and I look at the Sony Spider-Verse and I think to myself, they've taken opportunities away from themselves with Venom they killed Carnage, which that's never going to happen. I mean, he's still in the comic books alive and well. Cletus Cassidy's still doing his thing. So, you know, to kill that, to take that away, I love that Venom made it on screen. And I think Tom Hardy did a good job. I just don't understand why there's no spider on his chest, why the symbiote didn't bond like he did in the comic books to Peter first, that he didn't absorb those powers. Because then again, there's that scene, right, that after credits scene, where Venom licks the screen and we see Peter Parker, and he licks the screen like he knows him. And then he talks about the hive mind. So maybe it's not that Venom symbiote, but it's a different one. What I'm saying is the Sony Spider-Verse has overcomplicated itself to the point that they have really good ideas, but they're not putting them together. They have really good ideas, and as far as I know, they have the ownership of these ideas, right, because of what Marvel sold to them years ago, but they're not bringing it all together. Venom is always linked to Spider-Man. Carnage is always linked to Venom and Spider-Man. Toxin is linked to his grandfather Venom and his father Carnage. And making Toxin green instead of being red and black, he's supposed to be black on the bottom, red on the top, to show that because symbiotes asexually reproduce. They don't need any other specimen or being or anything to reproduce. And so Venom, a piece of him produces Carnage, asexually reproduction, and a piece of Carnage creates Toxin. So Toxin has a piece of Venom and a piece of Carnage, and that's what it shows in the comic books. Well, that's not what we saw in Venom 3, in The Last Dance. We saw a green, floating, liquidy type character, and then they killed Toxin. So we didn't even... And the thing is, why would you not make him Toxin if he bonds to the police officer that he bonds to in the Venom Carnage comic books that I own and I love? You have him bond to the detective. You have them link up to each other like they do in the comics. And then you make him look different. And then you murder Toxin in Venom The Last Dance. You know what I mean? It's like they introduce Carnage, they kill him. They introduce Toxin, they kill him. And these symbiotes are supposed to be so powerful. And then these things that are sent to track down Venom, right, in Venom The Last Dance, because of the beacon that Venom has, because he gave up his life, or because he brought Eddie back to life, that codex that he has, the things that chase the codex that serve the King in Black, those things that chase him, if they're that strong that they can literally just like hoover down all these symbiotes, right? Just suck them up like a vacuum and shoot them out of the back of their head like blood. If they're that strong, then what do we need the King in Black for? We don't even need him, right? So I feel like, and to introduce the King in Black, who's never been on screen before, I mean, to me, why are you introducing him just to not have him be around? Like, you bring Null into Venom The Last Dance, and then you're like, okay, so you brought in Null, and here's the thing. Null didn't get the codex. So how was Null released? The whole point of the movie from the beginning of the movie is get to Venom, get the codex, I get released. They don't do that. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It said if one of them dies. If one of them dies. But at the end of the movie, it looks like Venom didn't die. So then how did Null get the codex? Because if one of them dies, then Null can get the codex, right? And Venom sacrifices himself and tries to kill them all. And because when Venom shows himself, that's when they can attack him. And when he shows himself, the codex is within him. But then at the end of the movie, it looks like a cockroach is him. So if he's not, it's just, that's what I'm saying is that Sony comes up with these ideas. They tell us these ideas in the movie, and then they go against their own ideas. And there's no clarity. There's no clarity of what universe Vulture is actually in. played by Michael Keaton. There's no clarity to where Morbius fits into any of this and why he reached out to Vulture, who he has no connection with. There's no clarity to what Spider-Man is in the Sony Spider-Verse besides Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen that are in the comic version of the Spider-Verse. I should say the cartoon version. There's no clarity in what the heck that one movie was that was dubbed so audibly awfully about Madam Web. You know, these characters are coming in and they've never been on screen before. We've never seen Madam Web before, right? We've never seen Morbius before, who's connected to Blade, by the way. We have never seen Toxin before, never saw Carnage before. We saw Venom for a short time with Topher Grace when Sam Raimi made Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire. But a lot of these characters, Kraven the Hunter, right? These are first-time characters. And to see them, right? To see Spider-Woman in Madam Web as well, and to see these other Spider characters, but, you know, and they're in their traditional costumes, but then the story makes no sense. And there's this evil Spider-Man who can't move his lips fast enough to match his words. And it's just leaving me saying, like, there's all of these good ideas, and we've almost seen all of the Sinister Six, right? We've seen the new Rhino in Kraven the Hunter. We've seen Kraven the Hunter in Kraven the Hunter. We have seen Venom. We've seen Morbius. We've seen Vulture. We've seen Scorpion. And we saw Mysterio in the Marvel Studios Sony kind of sharing, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, where he allegedly dies, and I don't really think he's dead. We've seen Willem Dafoe return as the Green Goblin. We've seen 2 different Harry Osborns, which can be the Hobgoblin or a Green Goblin 2. We've seen Sandman, right? We've seen Sandman. We've seen what looked like it was Molten Man, looked like it was Hydroman, but it was really just the effects of using the drones that Mysterio had in Far From Home that he stole from Tony Stark via Peter Parker. So we have the Sinister Six, right? Because we've also seen Doc Ock return. So, from Spider-Man 2, when he returned in Spider-Man No Way Home. And we've seen the Lizard, who returned from The Amazing Spider-Man, the first one, with Andrew Garfield. You know, so we have all the characters. And we have Madam Web that can link all the Spider people together. And we have the Spider-Verse that's been linking all the Spider people together. And we have Peter Parker and we have Miles Morales. And we have Venom and we have the symbiotes. And we have Null. We've introduced all these characters, but there's no connection to them. There's no overarching story that tells us how this all makes sense together. And why have they not known about each other? And why is Madam Web not talking to Peter Parker? So I just don't understand. And I just am in a place where I think that we have something, but it's just not coming together. And I would love to work at Sony. I would love for Sony to hire me. And I would love to have that opportunity to bridge the gap and to tell these stories and to cut the dead, to essentially cut the dead nerves and to ignite the ones that need to be ignited. I think that we can truly make a Spider-Verse that is capable and is telling multiple stories at any given time. I love that they're bringing in the Sinister Six. I love that we have a Kraven movie because I never thought that would happen. And I actually think that the Kraven movie was pretty good. So good enough for me to buy it. And I like the Venom movies, and I've bought all of those too. I've either bought them or gotten them as gifts, but I love all the Venom movies. There's value in what's here. It's just not being properly put together. And so Sony, I'll look right into the screen right now. And you say, "Well, who are you, Dan? You've never worked professionally in Hollywood. You're not a screenwriter." Well, I have worked on screenwriting. I have come up with ideas. I've been a storyteller since I was 5. I've been reading Spider-Man comic books for as long as I can remember picking up a comic book. And I have a passion for this that cannot be measured. So Sony letting me do this wouldn't be a bad thing. I would love to do it. I would love to tell these stories. I have a vision. I have a mission. I have a Spider-Man that I want to work with. Not that I don't want to work with the other ones, but I have one that I got a really good story for. And I can tie it all back into Venom. And I can tie it into Spider-Gwen. And I can tie it into Miles Morales. We can make these things happen. But I would need to have creative immunity, essentially, to build this story and to build this brand and to go find the people that I want to do it. But the Sony Spider-Verse, to me, has so many things that they've done, but it was almost like they wanted to get the characters out there. They wanted to show everybody. They wanted to do it first. And instead of doing it right, they just did it first. Instead of connecting it, they just put it out there. You have to have a plan. See, if you look at life in the small picture, you can get to a certain point. You might be able to get to the end of your road. You might be able to get to the end of your neighborhood. But if you don't get in a plane and look at the earth, you're only going to go so far. If you're short-sighted, you're only going to get down the street. If you look at the big picture, you're going to see, okay, well, this is how it connects. And it's a difficult thing to do. And I'm not saying I would be perfect at it. I can't be perfect at anything. No, none of us can. But to say we want the Sinister Six, we want Venom, we want the symbiotes, we want Miles, we want Peter, we want Madam Web. Okay, so then let's get up in a plane. Let's look at what that looks like. Let's look at all those different pieces, right? Let's tell those stories, but then they all have to connect like the web that's behind me in order to be successful at it. You got some good actors out there, right? You got some good actors. You got some good actresses. You got some people that have played some really good roles. I'm not saying you got to reinvent the wheel. But the spokes on the wheel got to connect, right? The web's got to come back together. Look at the web behind me. Every single piece of that web, right? All those elements, all those pieces, there's that dead center piece that's right behind my head. You see that dot right there? That middle piece shoots out to every part of the web. You have to know the central story in order to tell the stories that are each piece of this. You cannot have parts of the web make sense if the central story isn't connecting them all together. And I would love to tell the story. So Sony, if you're watching, my email, superpoweredpop@gmail.com. Inside the Parker Banner Kent and Wayne studios, I thank you for being here. And I ask you to go to Parker Banner Kent and Wayne today and every day of the week. They're open 7 days a week on 21500 Catawba Ave, Suite A in Cornelius, North Carolina. Go and visit them. Let them know that DT sent you. Whether you got to get on a plane or drive down the road, Parker Banner Kent and Wayne, it's the people. It's always been the people when it comes to me. I will help good people. I will reach out to good people, and I will always want to partner with people, whether they're in my backyard or a million miles away. Parker Banner Kent and Wayne is my choice for comics and games, and Matt Milburn and his family make it special. They're so much more than simply being a store, and that's why I appreciate them, because they care. So go to Parker Banner Kent and Wayne today, 21500 Catawba Ave, Suite A in Cornelius, North Carolina. You can find out more information by searching PBKW or Parker Banner Kent and Wayne on any of your search engines and your social media. For now, from the Parker Banner Kent and Wayne studios, this has been Superpowered Pop, speaking on the Sony Spider-Verse and how to bring it together. Remember, your hero lies within.